What would it feel like to live under the shadow of one of the most iconic names in music history? For years, whispers of a hidden legacy have surrounded B. Howard, a talented artist with an undeniable resemblance to Michael Jackson. Is he truly the king of pop's biological son? Or is he simply another gifted musician whose life has been tangled in the web of public curiosity? B. Howard's journey isn't just a tale of rumors and headlines. It's a story of resilience, identity, and the power of art to define a person beyond speculation. How do you carve out your own path when the world insists on tying you to a legend? And most importantly, is it even possible to separate talent from lineage in the eyes of a captivated audience? Let's get to know everything. At first glance, Brandon Howard, better known as B. Howard, seemed like just another talented musician carving his path in the shadow of the industry's giants. He had a voice that could send shivers down your spine, a presence that demanded attention, and a creative energy that seemed boundless. But something about him stirred questions. It wasn't just his talent, though that was undeniable. It was his striking resemblance to Michael, the soft features, the intense gaze, the unmistakable aura of someone who belonged on stage. Perhaps most compelling of all was his voice. There was something hauntingly familiar in it, as though it carried echoes of a legacy too distinct to ignore. People couldn't help but ask, was B. Howard a living link to Michael Jackson? For years, B. Howard chose to remain silent. He brushed off the rumors, focused on his work, and avoided the public spectacle that threatened to consume him. Yet his silence didn't quell the speculation. If anything, it fanned the flames. Fans dissected every frame of his performances, scrutinized every note of his music, searching for clues that might confirm their suspicions. The resemblance wasn't confined to the physical. His mannerisms, his energy, and even his artistic choices bore a familiarity that felt more than coincidental. It wasn't just fans. Music industry insiders, journalists, and even casual observers began to take notice. Speculation wasn't new to the Jackson name, but this was different. This wasn't about scandal or controversy. It was about belonging, about legacy. B. Howard became an enigma, a puzzle that the public was desperate to solve. Was he truly Michael's biological son? And if so, why wasn't he claiming that legacy outright? Why not embrace the connection, revel in the admiration, and let the world marvel at this next chapter in the Jackson dynasty? The questions were loud, but Howard's silence was louder. It was as though he was saying, "This isn't the time." That silence came at a cost. In a world where stories often become truth simply by being repeated, B. Howard found himself painted in shades of mystery and myth. He became a subject of fascination, a name that invoked curiosity and divided opinions. Some saw him as a genuine talent unfairly overshadowed by an unfounded rumor. Others were convinced that the truth of his lineage was being deliberately concealed, either to protect him from scrutiny or to guard the secrets of the Jackson family. Howard's decision to keep quiet wasn't born out of fear or avoidance. It was a calculated choice, a way to protect himself and those around him. The Jackson legacy wasn't something to be taken lightly. It was a weight that carried as much burden as it did glory. To claim a connection, true or not, was to invite an unimaginable level of scrutiny. It wasn't just about a DNA test or a family tree. It was about the expectations, the comparisons, and the relentless judgment that would follow. B. Howard understood this better than anyone, and so he chose to let his work speak for itself. But the world wasn't satisfied with songs and performances. They wanted answers. The media, relentless in its pursuit of a headline, kept the narrative alive. Interviews hinted at the question without ever addressing it directly, teasing viewers with the possibility of a revelation that never came. Fans speculated on social media, drawing comparisons and fueling debates. Every new piece of information, no matter how trivial, was dissected and analyzed. A photograph with a Jackson family member, a subtle turn of phrase in a song, even a fleeting resemblance in a music video, all of it was treated like evidence in a case that had yet to be made. It was as though the world was building a case, piece by piece, waiting for Howard to confirm or deny the story they had constructed. And yet there was something deeply human in B. Howard's silence. It wasn't just about protecting himself, it was about control. about owning his narrative in a world that was determined to write it for him. For Howard, the question of his lineage wasn't just a matter of public interest. It was deeply personal. It wasn't just about Michael Jackson, it was about him, his identity, his life. What did it mean to be constantly defined by someone else's legacy, to have your own achievements overshadowed by a name that wasn't even officially yours? As the years went on, the whispers didn't fade. They evolved. They became less about speculation and more about expectation. The public wasn't just curious anymore. They were waiting for the moment. B. Howard would finally break his silence, finally give them the truth they had been seeking. For some, it felt like an unspoken promise, as though Howard owed them clarity simply because they had invested so much in his story. But for Howard, the truth was more complicated. The weight of those expectations wasn't just about him, it was about his family, his career, and the life he had worked so hard to build. Behind the scenes, Howard grappled with the implications of speaking out. He knew that addressing the rumors, even in the simplest terms, would change everything. It wouldn't just be a revelation, it would be a defining moment, one that could either elevate his career or consume it entirely. But he also understood that silence had its own consequences. By refusing to address the speculation, he allowed others to fill in the blanks, to craft their own narratives about who he was and what his story meant. The moment finally came when Howard decided it was time to speak. It wasn't an elaborate press conference or a tell-all interview. It was a quiet, measured statement, one that addressed the rumors without succumbing to the spectacle. In his own words, he clarified that he had never authorized any DNA test or sought to prove a connection to Michael Jackson. He acknowledged the speculation, the curiosity, and the comparisons, but he refused to let them define him. "I'm focused on my music, my craft," he said. "That's who I am. That's what matters." His words were both a revelation and a refusal. They answered some questions while leaving others untouched, preserving the mystery that had surrounded him for so long. For Howard, it wasn't about denying or confirming anything. It was about reclaiming his narrative, about reminding the world that his story was his own to tell. The reaction was immediate and intense. Fans and critics alike debated the meaning of his statement, dissecting every word for hidden implications. Some praised his honesty and composure, while others saw his response as evasive, a way to avoid giving a definitive answer. But for Howard, the impact of his decision was clear. By addressing the rumors on his terms, he had taken the first step toward freeing himself from the shadow of speculation. As the world continued to ask questions, Howard turned his attention back to what he loved most: creating music. For him, the act of making art wasn't just a profession, it was a way to connect, to heal, and to express the complexities of his journey. And as he stood on stage, performing for audiences who saw him as more than just a name or a rumor, he realized that the answers people sought weren't as important as the story he was still writing. For most of his life, B. Howard had learned to live with the questions that trailed him like a shadow. They were the kind of questions that could feel like a weight one day and a fleeting breeze the next, depending on how much attention he gave them. But for those outside his circle, the weight was a palpable and unanswered story about legacy, connection, and identity that seemed too tantalizing to ignore. Howard's childhood was a balancing act. He was raised between the sprawling landscapes of Los Angeles and the more grounded, close-knit world of Chicago. On one hand, he was a product of the vibrant West Coast, where music, creativity, and opportunity were everywhere. On the other hand, the Midwestern ethos of humility and hard work shaped him into someone who valued discipline and respect. While most kids his age were figuring out their favorite cartoon characters, Howard was quietly absorbing the world of music that surrounded him. He grew up aware of the magnitude of the Jackson family's name. It wasn't just about fame, it was a dynasty of sound, rhythm, and innovation. As a child, he wasn't oblivious to the whispers or the looks people gave him. He had heard it all before: the comparisons, the subtle hints, and the outright declarations. Yet even as a boy, he understood the delicate line between curiosity and invasion. And so he made a choice to focus on what he could control: his craft. The parallels between Howard and Michael Jackson went beyond appearance or talent. His teachers and mentors noticed it in his work ethic. While other kids treated school activities as mere distractions, Howard saw them as stepping stones. Music classes weren't just an outlet, they were preparation. Choir wasn't just about singing, it was about learning harmony, control, and discipline. By the time most teenagers were figuring out what they wanted to do, Howard already knew. He wasn't just going to make music, he was going to live it. Yet, even as he pursued his passion, the questions about his lineage persisted. At first, they were subtle, comments made in passing or the occasional curious glance. But as he grew older and stepped further into the world of music, the questions became louder, more direct. Did he feel the weight of being compared to Michael Jackson? Did he think his talent was a gift from someone he had never publicly claimed? The speculation was relentless, but Howard's response was always the same. A quiet, composed smile and a determination to let his work speak louder than the rumors. That approach wasn't easy. Living under the shadow of a name as iconic as Jackson meant that every move he made was scrutinized. His successes were often attributed to his supposed lineage, and his challenges were seen as proof that he wasn't living up to the expectations placed on him. Howard, however, refused to let the whispers define him. He worked harder, sang louder, and pushed himself further, determined to prove that his identity wasn't tied to someone else's legacy. It was his own. But even as Howard built his career, the questions never truly went away. They were there in the background, unspoken but always present. Some fans were supportive, celebrating his talent without needing confirmation of his lineage. Others, however, were relentless, digging through every detail of his life in search of a connection to Michael Jackson. For Howard, it was an ongoing battle between embracing his place in the music industry and navigating the narratives others tried to impose on him. The toll of silence was heavier than most people realized. To the public, Howard's decision to avoid the rumors seemed like an act of mystery, perhaps even indifference. But for him, it was about protecting his peace. Speaking out meant risking the loss of his identity as an artist, as his story would inevitably become tangled in the endless web of Jackson family speculation. And yet, not speaking out allowed the narrative to grow unchecked, often overshadowing the work he had spent his life creating. As his career progressed, Howard began to find solace in the music itself. Each song he wrote, each melody he crafted, was a declaration of who he was, someone deeply passionate about his art, independent of any rumors. His work wasn't just about proving something to the world, it was about proving something to himself. And as he stood on stage, pouring his soul into every performance, he realized that the music was the only truth that mattered. But the questions, persistent as ever, continued to evolve. They weren't just about him anymore, they were about legacy. People wanted to know what it meant to be connected to an icon like Michael Jackson, even tangentially. Did it bring pressure, pride, conflict? Howard understood the weight of those questions, but he wasn't ready to answer them. Not yet. The moment came without fanfare, no grand stage or elaborate announcement. After years of speculation, whispers, and unrelenting questions, B. Howard finally chose to address the topic that had followed him for most of his life. The public had long been waiting for clarity, a confirmation, or perhaps even a denial about his connection to Michael Jackson. What they got was something far more measured, a carefully crafted response that shed light without fully giving away the mystery. It all began with the infamous DNA test story in 2014, which sent shockwaves through media outlets and fan communities. TMZ, known for its sensational headlines, claimed to have obtained proof that B. Howard was biologically linked to Michael Jackson. The alleged evidence was based on a DNA test conducted using items purportedly linked to Jackson. Headlines blared, fan forums lit up, and the world turned its eyes toward Howard. But rather than fueling the flames, Howard stepped forward to clarify the situation. In a candid statement, he addressed the rumors head-on, firmly denying any involvement in or authorization of the DNA test. "I did not call TMZ," he stated, his tone calm but resolute. Howard made it clear that he had not sought to prove or disprove anything about his lineage, emphasizing that the rumors and tests were not orchestrated by him. It was a moment of transparency, and yet it left room for the intrigue to linger. What followed was a whirlwind of reactions. Some fans rallied behind him, praising his composure and dignity in handling such a deeply personal matter. Others remained skeptical, dissecting every word for hidden meanings or implied truths. To many, the question wasn't just about genetics, it was about legacy, belonging, and the inescapable pull of Michael Jackson's iconic shadow. For B. Howard, the decision to speak out wasn't an easy one. He had spent much of his career trying to carve his own path, to be recognized for his artistry rather than his alleged connections. The DNA story threatened to overshadow everything he had worked for, reducing his accomplishments to footnotes in someone else's narrative. And yet, Howard understood the importance of addressing the rumors, if only to set the record straight on his terms. The public's reaction to his statement revealed the depth of fascination surrounding the Jackson name. For some, the possibility of a biological connection was less important than the symbolic link. Howard's resemblance to Michael, his musical talent, and his respectful handling of the situation all seemed to echo the spirit of the King of Pop. Others, however, were more focused on the specifics, demanding definitive proof or outright dismissal of the claims. In the midst of this storm, Howard remained steadfast. He chose not to let the rumors dictate his narrative, instead using the opportunity to redirect attention to his music. "My focus has always been on creating art that resonates with people," he said in an interview shortly after the story broke. "I don't need a test or a headline to define who I am." And define himself he did. In the weeks following his statement, Howard released a series of tracks that showcased his talent and versatility. The music wasn't just a response to the rumors, it was a reaffirmation of his identity as an artist. Songs like Dance Floor and Night and Day resonated with fans, not because of who they thought he might be, but because of the sheer joy and passion that radiated through every note. Still, the questions lingered. In interviews, Howard was often asked to revisit the topic, to provide clarity or confirm suspicions. His answers, though consistent, revealed the complexity of his situation. "I understand the curiosity," he admitted in one conversation. "But at the end of the day, I'm here to share my music and connect with people. That's what matters most to me." The choice to break his silence, even partially, marked a turning point in Howard's journey. It wasn't just about addressing rumors, it was about reclaiming his narrative. For years, his story had been written by others, shaped by speculation and assumptions. Now he was taking control, defining himself not by his alleged connections, but by the values and vision he carried forward. For fans, the moment was bittersweet. Those hoping for definitive answers were left with more questions, while others found solace in Howard's focus on his craft. Regardless of where one stood, there was no denying the depth of his artistry and the resilience he had shown in navigating such an intense public spotlight. As the media frenzy began to settle, Howard turned his attention back to what he loved most: creating music. The experience of breaking his silence had been both cathartic and challenging, a reminder of the delicate balance between personal privacy and public curiosity. But for Howard, it also reinforced a deeper truth. His worth as an artist wasn't tied to a name, a test, or a rumor. It was rooted in the passion, authenticity, and dedication he brought to his work. For B. Howard, addressing the swirling rumors about his lineage wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where his actions, not assumptions, would take center stage. The aftermath of his statement had brought clarity to some and left others yearning for more definitive answers. But for Howard, the focus had shifted. He was determined to reclaim the narrative, moving past the noise and grounding himself in the one thing that had always been his true calling: music. The fallout from the DNA test controversy was multifaceted. On one hand, Howard's candid response had earned him respect from fans and industry insiders alike. By refusing to sensationalize the situation or exploit the attention, he had shown a level of composure that mirrored the discipline he had cultivated throughout his career. On the other hand, the speculation didn't entirely disappear. For some, his refusal to provide a simple yes or no answer was seen as evasive, leaving the door open for further conjecture. Navigating this complex dynamic required resilience, and Howard found solace in returning to his roots. The controversy, while exhausting, reminded him of why he had started making music in the first place. The studio became his sanctuary, a place where the weight of public scrutiny faded, and only the melodies and rhythms remained. In those quiet, creative moments, he rediscovered the joy of his craft, untainted by the expectations of others. Howard's next steps weren't about responding to the rumors, but about rising above them. He poured himself into his work, collaborating with artists from diverse backgrounds and experimenting with new sounds. His goal wasn't just to create hits, it was to make music that resonated, music that spoke to his journey and connected with people on a deeper level. Songs like Supermodel and Don't Say You Love Me became anthems of resilience, not because they addressed his personal challenges directly, but because they captured the universal experience of striving for authenticity in a world full of judgments. As Howard's career continued to evolve, so did his relationship with the Jackson family. Despite the speculation, he had always maintained that his connection to them was rooted in mutual respect and shared artistry, not biology. His mother, Mickey Howard, a celebrated artist in her own right, had long been linked to the Jacksons through her music career. This shared history created a foundation of understanding and camaraderie, even as the media tried to weave their own narratives. The family's influence was undeniable, but Howard remained steadfast in his belief that his path was uniquely his own. "I have so much respect for the Jackson family and everything they've achieved," he said in one interview, "but my journey is about finding my voice and sharing my story." That story wasn't just about proving himself as an artist, it was about embracing the complexities of identity and legacy, while refusing to be defined by them. For Howard, the lessons of the past few years extended beyond the personal. The experience of being at the center of such intense speculation taught him the importance of setting boundaries, both professionally and personally. It wasn't just about protecting his privacy, it was about staying true to his values and ensuring that his work remained authentic. "I've learned that you can't control what people think or say about you," he reflected. "All you can do is focus on what matters to you and keep moving forward." This forward momentum was evident in his career. While the media buzzed with questions about his lineage, Howard focused on building bridges across the global music scene. Collaborations with international artists allowed him to expand his creative horizons, blending influences from different cultures and genres. Each project was a reminder that music at its core is about connection, something far more profound than any headline or rumor. Touring became another source of growth for Howard. The energy of live performances, the way audiences connected with his music, was a reminder of why he had chosen this path. The stage wasn't just a place to showcase his talent, it was a space where he could be fully himself, free from the weight of speculation. "When I'm performing, all that matters is the music and the people in front of me," he said. "It's where I feel the most alive." Yet, even as he focused on his craft, Howard remained aware of the broader implications of his journey. His story wasn't just about navigating personal challenges, it was about representing resilience and authenticity in an industry that often prioritizes image over substance. By staying true to himself, he hoped to inspire others to do the same, reminding them that their worth isn't defined by what others think or say. The lessons he had learned weren't confined to his own experience. Howard began to see his story as part of a larger narrative about legacy, identity, and the power of art. For him, music was more than a career. It was a way to connect, to heal, and to inspire. And as he looked to the future, he was determined to continue creating work that reflected those values, regardless of the noise around him. B. Howard's story was never meant to be a simple one. From the very beginning, it carried layers of complexity, weaving themes of legacy, artistry, and identity into a single narrative. Yet, as he stood on the cusp of a new chapter in his life, it became clear that the answers people sought weren't as important as the journey he had taken to reach this point. By now, Howard had found his rhythm, both in music and in life. The questions about his lineage, though still present in certain circles, no longer defined him. Instead, they served as a reminder of the strength it took to remain true to himself amid speculation and scrutiny. For Howard, the turning point wasn't about proving or disproving anything. It was about reclaiming his narrative, focusing on what truly mattered, and finding peace in the process. His music became a reflection of this journey. In the years following the DNA controversy, Howard released tracks that carried a sense of personal and artistic growth. Songs like Don't Say You Love Me resonated with audiences not because of the headlines surrounding him, but because they were authentic, born from his experiences and emotions. The music wasn't just a career, it was his sanctuary. his way of connecting with people beyond the noise of the world around him. But even as Howard continued to thrive as an artist, he knew that his story held a greater significance. It wasn't just about him, it was about the countless individuals navigating their own paths in a world full of expectations and judgments. His decision to maintain composure and focus on his craft was a testament to the resilience it takes to rise above external pressures. "I've learned that people will always have questions," he said in an interview, "but the real answers come from how you choose to live your life." Howard's legacy, as he saw it, was one of inspiration. His goal wasn't to be defined by the rumors or the comparisons, it was to leave a mark on the world through his art and his authenticity. Whether through his music, his collaborations, or the quiet moments of reflection he shared with his audience, he wanted people to feel empowered to embrace their truth no matter the challenges they faced. As he looked to the future, Howard remained focused on creating music that transcended boundaries. His collaborations spanned genres and cultures, bringing together voices from different parts of the world to create something truly unique. For him, music was a universal language, a way to bridge divides and bring people closer together. Each project was an opportunity to explore new ideas, connect with others, and push the boundaries of what was possible. The stage, too, remained a place of profound connection for Howard. Every performance was a chance to share his story, not through words, but through the energy and emotion of his music. Whether in an intimate venue or a packed arena, he found joy in the shared experience of music, in the way it brought people together and allowed them to feel something real. "There's nothing like being on stage," he said. "It's where I feel the most alive, where everything else fades away, and it's just me and the music." In many ways, Howard's journey was a testament to the power of resilience and self-discovery. He had faced questions that could have defined him, challenges that could have deterred him, and expectations that could have overwhelmed him. Yet, through it all, he had remained true to himself, finding strength in his art and purpose in his story. For Howard, the answers to the questions about his lineage were secondary to the legacy he was building, a legacy of passion, creativity, and authenticity. As the world continued to speculate, Howard's focus remained unwavering. He wasn't interested in feeding the rumors or revisiting the past. Instead, he was looking ahead, driven by a desire to keep growing, keep creating, and keep inspiring. His story was far from over, but one thing was clear. It was his story to tell, on his terms, in his own time. With that, we have reached the end of today's video. If you have come that far with us, be sure to check out other videos on the channel.